No, this is not going to be story time again. No, not at the moment. So the other week, I went and saw one of my cousins in a performance of the Nutcracker Delights. And the she played the main character. Um she plays Maria, who is the grand or like the great granddaughter of Clara, who's the main character in most of the tellings of the Nutcracker. Clara Stromsberg, I believe. Um, and my cousin got to play Maria, so she's one of the big dancing parts in it. She's one of the speaking roles, and she dances and everything. She was also playing the alternate role of the Snow Queen, or the kind of sugar plum fairy type character that's like the lead of the fairies. Or so, not in the same performance. Her and the other girl who was playing the Snow Queen in her version, in her performance, switch. So like my niece got like two of the performances as Clara or as a Maria, and then she got two of the performances as the Snow Queen, Ice Fiend, Ice Fairy, whatever the proper term for it is, and they switched back and forth. I think she's played Maria before, according to my dad, but this is the first time I've actually gotten the chance to go, because pretty much all the other times I was working whenever she was going to be in the show, and there wasn't really a good time when I would be able to go and see it, unfortunately. But she did a very good job in it. Um, but the version that the version that she did that is based off of this book, Delightful Secrets of the Nutcracker. This is by Julian Adair, and illustrated by Emily Baum. And it's a telling of the Nutcracker. It starts off just basically with a family getting ready for Christmas. There's the descendants of like Clara from the original Nutcracker, her grandson and great grandchildren and great great grandchildren in the form of Marie and her younger brother. And she gets told these different stories about the Nutcracker and the Rat Queen instead of the Rat King, and different things like that. And there's different stories that go along with it, and how the Nutcracker became cursed, and then God Papa Drosselmeyer is there, and eventually everything comes out okay. And of course, there's a whole the delightful, the whole the enchanted, fairy realm type section of it, which is where most of the dancing takes place. Which is of course the more famous pieces out of it. So I just kind of figured I'd do a short video about kind of the history of the Nutcracker. Not the item itself, but the not the item itself, but the history of the Nutcrackers and the ballet. And I pulled out one of my Christmas-y shirts. Not super Christmassy, and I just realized that this pattern looks like shoes or ice skates, whatever. I think they're ice skates. I could be wrong. But so the Nutcracker itself is a two-part ballet that was kind of premiered in 1892. So it's 100 years old, the year I was born. Interesting. I didn't realize that. And it's the fairy ballet, and it was originally choreographed by Maurice Petipa. I apologize if I mispronounced that. And Lev Ivanov. Again, these are Russian names because it's a Russian ballet originally, and I'm just kind of blanking. It's like Russian or German names, and I'm slightly blanking on them, and I apologize. And then, of course, the score was done by Pyotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky. And the main part of it was based off of the book, The Nutcracker and the Mouse King, by E.T.A. Hoffman. And that book came out in 1816 is when the book originally came out, and then it was then adapted into the ballet by these people. And then, of course, down the line, unfortunately, it wasn't like super popular right off the bat, but then later on, the music from it became very popular, and it became very good for ballet, obviously. And there's lots of roles in there for different variations of dancing and stuff like that. And admittedly, in like some of the original versions of it, obviously, because there's stuff that's based off of, Russian and Arab and Chinese type dances, and those were usually performed by people who were kind of dressed up to look like those people. And subsequently in more major versions of it, they have tried to kind of fix that a little bit, or make costumes or things a little bit more appropriate to a degree, based around who they have in the troupe and everything. And of course, the main structure for the Nutcracker in and of itself is usually the miniature overture, which is mostly just like the opening part of it, where you get like parts of the background of the characters. Sometimes the background, or the at the beginning where you get like the part with the family, is sometimes cut off at times. It's usually just like, oh, the ballet starts with God Papa Drosselmeyer, this inventor who is extremely smart and very, very creative and everything. He hands out, he gives Clara a nutcracker for Christmas. He's her, her godfather, godpapa, whatever you want to refer to it as. And admittedly, most versions of Drosselmeyer got style. I will admit that. Um, Lots of fun things that happen there. They usually have quite a bit of style. The gentleman that they had playing Drosselmeyer in the version that I went and saw had as like rather fun style type thing. And he did good. The Drosselmeyer usually has like the long black cloak and sometimes the hat and everything. And we go from that, and he gives Clara the Nutcracker, and then Clara has a dream where she is being attacked by mice, and then the Nutcracker comes to life and helps and protects her, and then fights against the Rat King or Queen, depending on the variation. And then Clara is the one that actually saves the Nutcracker by killing the Mouse King. And then what ends up happening is then that's when it shifts into the delight section, where you have Clara and the Nutcracker, whose curse has been broken and has been turned back into a real boy, turned back into a human. And in the story, he's usually like Drosselmeyer's nephew that like broke the curse, or that had the curse placed on them. And then Drosselmeyer has been waiting to find someone who can break this curse, and eventually he does, and that would be Clara and or Maria, depending on the variation of the story. Or Marcia is one of the other variations of a name that she's given in some of the different versions. And Clara and the Nutcracker then dance together, and then there's the Nutcracker Delights, the suites that come out, and this is where you get the marche, and then the dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy, which is sometimes moved around in the ballet depending on stuff. And then you have the Russian dance, or the Terpak, is one of the versions of it. And there's also the Arabian dance, which is kind of a Arabian Nights type thing. And then there's the Chinese dance, which is usually people in like kimono type things, very simple, more looking kimono type things. We have a few of those things on the cover of the book. Can't see them too well. I think I might have a better picture in here of some of the things. And like the pictures that I'm using in this for the video are just like so many different variations of different productions of the Nutcracker around the world, because it's one of the most famous ones there is. And we have the Land of Sweets and all the different types of dances that go into that. Some are partner dances, some are trios, or one person, or more than that. They dance in and out, like Clara and the Nutcracker, the prince, or the new humified Nutcracker, like watching these delights and everything. And the Sugar Plum Fairy comes out and dances around too. And then like it ends with Clara and the Nutcracker like saying goodbye to each other, and then she wakes up the next morning, and then like it's Christmas morning, of course. And then Drosselmeyer and her family are all there, and Drosselmeyer brings his nephew with him, and Clara recognizes him and then, they end up getting married is basically they get married at the end of the story. And when my cousin came out in a wedding dress, when my cousin came out in a wedding dress at the end of it, it was like this kind of, more Victorian style type wedding dress, but it was still very nice, and she pulled it off rather well. Um, but it's just like one of those jarring moments because like she's in high school at the moment, but it's just like she better have a while before she's getting married. Um, but there's all the different variations of the dances that go through that, and I've seen different versions of the Nutcracker and different tellings of the story, which I'm going to go over in a minute. For some of the ones that I've seen and just some of the other more major productions of it that they've done. Almost every year, my cousin and her troupe have been doing the Nutcracker Delights, and she's been doing ballet for quite a while, and she starts off on like the lower things, and you move up through it as different dancers and the delight section, and then eventually she's the one that got to be Maria this year for some of the performances and such. And of course, the ballet for the Nutcracker is one of the most famous ballets, along with like Swan Lake. In regards to some of the productions that have been versions of the Nutcracker that have come out over the years, that are different retellings of the story or uses parts of the music to tell certain stories. One of the most famous, of course, is the 1940 version of Disney, that is Fantasia. Features the segment using the Nutcracker Suite, which is the main thing that most people are familiar with from it. And this is I talked about this way back in my first Fantasia video, where I talk about this version of Fantasia, the original version. And I broke it down a lot more on that, but you have, the different changing of the seasons and everything like that. And then like different, fish dance to certain things, and there's fairies there, and it's different things like that, showing different changes in nature. And I just think it's one of the most beautifully animated sequences I have ever seen. And then of course there's also the Dance of the Hours in it as well, on the that have the hippos and the peacock, or not the peacocks, the ostriches and the crocodiles, and the elephants are one of the other sections, but I don't remember that one being part of the Dance of the Hours being part of that, but I could be wrong. What it's like when I'm sitting there listening to the music, and like almost any time that I'm listening to any variation of the Nutcracker Delights and the Nutcracker Suite, I picture a lot of the Fantasia stuff going through my head, because that's what I grew up watching it with. And doesn't mean that I don't, like other variations of it, or doesn't mean that I'm not paying attention, but I'm like seeing a lot of that in my head. One of the other versions that that has come out is the Spirit of Christmas from 1950, which is a marionette made for TV featurette that was, featured in color, and it's, based on a poem, A Visit from St. Nicholas, and they used parts of the music in that. There is the Sanrio released a stop motion adaptation of the Nutcracker entitled Nutcracker Fantasy in 1979. A lot of these variations I have not seen, but these are just some of the more major productions of it. And in 1988, Care Bear's Nutcracker Suite premiered on Canadian television, with the different Care Bear's characters in there, which is just kind of funny. And then we have 1990 itself. There was the Warner Brothers Pictures used cuts from the movie throughout its story to tell parts of a various version of it. That was the Nutcracker Prince was released, and that was from Warner Brothers. And then Batman the Animated Series episode Christmas with the Joker. The Joker plays the dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy, and later the Russian dance, as on a record player to distract Batman and Robin. And I don't know if that means that it was also the Joker dressed up as the Sugar Plum Fairy. I could not find pictures for it, but if that was the case, that would have been hilarious. Because the Batman the Animated Series version Joker was just one of my favorite versions of the Joker. He was also voiced by Mark Hamill, so yeah, Luke Skywalker played the Joker. Fun with that. One of the other variations of it that I'm a bit more familiar with is the 2001 Barbie in the Nutcracker, which I have seen several times. Some of the Barbie movies are okay. I will admit some of the Barbie movies are okay. I also like the Swan Princess version of, the Barbie's Swan Princess version that I do like, and there's also a Rapunzel one that I like a fair amount, because they use a lot of the music from those different productions in the movies, because I think the copyrights for Swan for a lot of those have like gone out the window at this point in time. But there's the Barbie and the Nutcracker, which uses excerpts from it and is performed by the London Symphony Orchestra. And it's heavily altered in the story, but they do use fair amounts of it in the story. It's been a while since I've seen it. And then one of my favorite versions of the Nutcracker, one of my favorite versions of the Nutcracker, is the Mickey Mouse Works version that they did. And I've seen it in Mickey Snowden at the House of Mouse is where I'm most familiar with it, because they did a Christmas special for that, and that I'm just going to give it its own video later this month. But the concept of it is they do the Nutcracker, and this came out in 1999, and it's Minnie as playing Maria, and then we have Mickey as the Nutcracker, and we have Ludwig von Drake as playing Drosselmeyer, and then we have Donald Duck as the Mouse King, and then we have Goofy as himself, and it is narrated by John Cleese, and the entire thing is just one of the funniest things I have ever seen. And it's like John Cleese is just literally just playing himself as John Cleese, and he's like, trying to narrate it, and then he's like interacting with the characters, because like Drosselmeyer, it's like he's describing things, and Drosselmeyer, like, Ludwig is just like, will you stop that? I'm trying to give her the gift, and then gives her the Nutcracker, and then like it dances around, and then like he like breaks it, and then like John Cleese goes, well, for that I'm kicking you out of the store, and he kicks him out of the house. And then like and then we have the Mouse King played by Donald. And like Donald's like he's wearing like one of the Mickey Mouse hats that has like the ears on it and everything, and he's like got fake buck teeth in his beak and everything. And it's just like, oh my god, what happened here? And like, he's playing, the Mouse King, and he kidnaps Minnie, and he's also like, but I don't want to be the Mouse King. But wait, Donald, come back. John Cleese, come back. But the Mouse King wins in the end. I do. And then, they go off, and, there's this whole thing, and like Goofy is there. And I'm going to do a more in-depth review of this when I do the Mickey Snowden at the House of Mouse, because there's also a variation of Disney's A Christmas Carol in there that has Scrooge McDuck in it, and Mickey as Bob Cratchit and everything. So I'll do a much more in-depth version of like a review of that later this month. One of the other versions is there's Tom and Jerry: A Nutcracker Tale, which uses excerpts from it that are played by the Chamber Orchestra of of Philadelphia, excuse me. Have not seen it. Don't know if I ever will. Disney had wanted to do an animated remake of the Nutcracker, because there's been a few other variations of the Nutcracker that were animated versions that weren't like extremely popular, but they were out there, because it's one of the most familiar stories. The Disney had wanted to do a Nutcracker version that would have been directed by Robert Zemeckis, through doing a big overall musical version of it, and movie version, and it was going to be used by the same animated with the same techniques that were used for like Polar Express and like Monster House and Beowulf and A Christmas Carol, the Jim Carrey version. But the film just like was canceled after like Mars Needs Moms comes out, and it just was not good. One of the other versions is the Nutcracker Suite in 3D with Elle Fanning. Abandoned the ballet and most of the story, returning to the Tchaikovsky's more the lyrics of it, with lyrics done by Tim Rice and everything. And it was a bomb at the box office. I don't remember seeing it. There's various Hallmark stuff that have used parts of the Nutcracker. And then one of the more famous ones that have come out more recently, of course, is the Nutcracker in the Four Realms. That was done by it was the live action version that was done by Disney. That came out in 2018, which I have seen, and I do very much like it. I would still say that the Mickey and Minnie version is my favorite version of the Nutcracker, but I do still like the Nutcracker in the Four Realms, because it like kind of takes the story and like turns it on its head. Like you have, Morgan Freeman as Godpapa Drosselmeyer, and you have, Helen Mirren as Mother Ginger, and you have Keira Knightley as the Sugar Plum Fairy, and there's several other characters in it. There's the Nutcracker is in there as well, and the film was directed by Ashlyn Powell, and then we have Misty Copeland, who is just awesome in and of herself, as the ballerina princess, because they do use pieces of the Nutcracker Delight throughout it, because the story is that it's like Maria, or no, she is Clara in this. Clara is like the great great granddaughter of, or like the daughter of like Maria, that had been to this Nutcracker world, and she was able to, like, she was this amazing inventor, and she like brought all these different creatures in the world to life. Like they had been dolls, and she made them into real things. And then of course, Clara gets swept into there on Christmas Eve, and she has to, fix everything that's been going wrong since her mother died, and go through all of that stuff. And it's beautifully done, and if you haven't seen it, I would recommend it. So I'm not really going to do, there's like a twist in it, but I'm not going to like spoil that. But I would recommend going and seeing it, because there is a whole section in it that is basically like Clara and then Sugar Plum Fairy, Keira Knightley's character, sitting there, and they're watching the Misty Copeland do like a bunch of the different stuff as like the ballerina princess in it, and she's amazing in it. And Misty Copeland is just amazing in it of herself. So not really too much else to go on for this one. There wasn't really all that I've seen variations of the Nutcracker. I've seen, different things where they've used pieces from it. I'm sure there's Looney Tunes cartoons out there that have used pieces from the Nutcracker at various points in time, because it would surprise me if they didn't. Because that would very much surprise me if they have not used some form of the Nutcracker music somewhere in Looney Tunes. But yeah, I would say that Mickey Mouse, the Mickey Mouse Works one with Minnie and Mickey is like my favorite, followed by the Fantasia stuff that they have in the original Fantasia, and then I do like the Nutcracker and the Four Realms. And I enjoy it. It's a good movie. It's a good way of like kind of introducing those characters and that music to a new generation. Which I always like that concept of like, let them find out about these new stories in this way, and then they come back and like learn about all these different, pieces of history that go along with it. I don't think I'm going to end up reading this, because it's actually it's a very beautifully done illustrations in the book. Very beautifully done. It was just that it's rather long in regards to telling the story. Like here's different variations of the family. Like these are all based off of the actors that played the characters. One of the years that they did the pictures for reference pictures, this would be the Maria character. Not this version, this one is not the one that's my niece. My niece did not pose for that picture, although according to my aunt, my niece, or not my niece, my cousin, was actually the one that ended up posing in this one as the Nutcracker. Even though my cousin has never played the role of the Nutcracker, she was this version of the Nutcracker when they were doing, like, I guess, set reference photos and everything. And we've got, the dance of the Sugar Plum Fairies and everything. And, the dance, the sweets, the land of sweets and everything. And, I just very much enjoy it. And, my niece, I keep saying niece, sorry, my cousin did a great job playing Maria, and she very much enjoyed it, and you could tell that she enjoyed it. And we were very happy for her and everything like that. And she's done variations of various levels of being in the performance at times, and this was the first time that I've actually gotten to go and see it. She's also done some at the Ralston Arena at various points in time. Nothing like over the top, but it's just, this is the first time that I've thankfully been able to go, because I actually had that day off of work, and that morning is when I went and got my booster shot. My arm still kind of hurts from that, because this is still just only a couple of days later. But so that's what I have for this in regards to, my thoughts on the Nutcracker. As I said, I'm going to do a more in-depth version of the Mickey Mouse Works version that they do. in that's in Mickey Snowden at the House of Mouse, because the concept for that is like, I've talked about House of Mouse before. It's like Mickey, Minnie, Donald, and Daisy, and then Goofy and Pluto all like run this like nightclub, and tunes show up from like different eras of Disney, and like they're in there, and like they play cartoons that are like classic cartoons and new cartoons, and I just love House of Mouse, and someday I'm just going to do a video about that. I just don't know when yet. We'll see. But that's what I have for this. So I thank you all for watching. I have my Nightmare Before Christmas hat on. I thank you very much for watching, as I said, and I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day, and Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. Bye! Your gift this year will be something you'll never forget. Most people don't realize there are troubled realms within our world, and you hold the key to their secrets. Remember, Clara, nothing is as it seems.